Uh, cool. And I think we're up.
That's what I kept trying to ask, and my mic wasn't working. Google Hangouts doesn't like the little default Apple, earbuds or whatever, in case anyone else was trying. I didn't know that. I guess that's like a known thing now.
Cool. All right. So, welcome to week two, or I guess we're coming into week two. That was sort of end of week one of the program, and we're going to go through a couple things today. We're going to kind of do a quick like stand up and just talk about like what progress you made, or what's one thing that you are really happy with that went well with your project last week, and what you're looking forward to next week. We'll sort of talk a little bit about the assignments themselves, and like sort of open discussion there, and we'll go through some of next week's the preview of next week's assignments and interview. That sound good to everybody? Great. So I'm gonna flip it onto the screen, entire screen, and here we go. It's that whole thing. There we go. Can you see that?
You guys see that?
Yeah. Okay.
Great.
Cool. So, week two, flight planning. Who's seen The Martian? I'm sure many of you have, or at least heard about it. Al, I know this is a movie you were really into. All right, I guess I can't hear anybody. That's fine.
We're all being good students and muting ourselves. I'm
I
a
know.
huge fan.
Just like this quote about planning, right? I think plans are useful, and but things don't always go according to plan. So let's all be resourceful as we continue with our side projects. Cool. So we're gonna do stand up. We're gonna do discussion. We're gonna talk about next week. So that's sort of the preview. But I'm gonna flip it back to us so we can do a stand up. One thing that went well with your project this week, and one thing you're looking forward to about your project for next week. So let's just. Let's do that. And Al, since you're all the way to the left, I'm going to have you go first.
Well, so I started learning a new tool, so that's cool. I've been putting off transitioning to Sketch forever. I would say it's a hot new tool, but it's been around so long now that it's almost actually an industry standard. So,
Yeah.
and it wasn't as hard as I thought. Like, it made me realize that yeah, it's just the same tool. I mean, it's got some cool new things about it that I understand why, like some of the hype is there already. Um, and the cool thing is that uh, I think I don't know about you guys, but for anyone else that's trying to learn something new, but I feel like I'm learning more efficiently. Like, there's some study that we probably all know you can't, like, cram, like, a semester's worth of info into 8 hours, but if you actually take the same 8 hours and you just try to learn every day, you actually learn it better. So the 15-minute thing has been, I didn't think I was going to be able to learn shit in 15 minutes. I thought the timer would be off and I'd be done, but every day, a little 15 minutes, like I've been progressing. So that went well. Trying to learn a new thing within 15 minutes has been surprising. One thing I'm looking forward to next week is to actually getting to use the tool. I'm starting to get impatient about dicking around, and so actually using it without really thinking about it is what I'm looking forward to.
Can you kind of involve it into your process at work? I know a lot of places use Sketch, but I'm not sure if you do.
No, not really. I mean, the stuff that I do is still mainly desktop focused, and I
Okay.
am just way too fast with. I don't even want to say what I use. I think Jason knows, uh, but yeah, no, and I'm also in a mode right now where I'm freelancing, and I'm actually about to freelance like even more. Like, so I do have a strategy going forward of using Sketch more for mobile stuff and incorporating more mobile work going forward anyway. It would be just too much of a polar bear challenge, jump into the ice completely to leave the other tool behind when I know I'm just like 10 times faster at it right now.
Cool. Thanks, Al.
Yeah.
Josh, do you want to go next and maybe even introduce yourself? I know you sent out an intro to the thread, but I think it might be nice to say again, like what you're working on, in addition to the project itself and your updates.
Yeah, sure. So it's kind of last minute
Cool.
intro email there, but so I started a company about 8 years ago that does inspection software and compliance for the energy sector. So it's about 8 years. So it's a long time. I'm kind of itching to do something different and something that I can use personally because I don't do inspections and stuff. I just build software for these people. And it's kind of an archaic industry when it comes to technology. So stuff that has been around for like 5-10 years is bleeding edge for them. So it would be nice to use like new tools and new kind of mediums, like React Native or something. So that's kind of my background. And then what I'd like to do is something called network. And I'm not sure if that's a great name for it or anything, because the term itself is kind of annoying. When you go into these conferences or whatever, and it's like, oh, are you networking enough, and all that kind of crap. But so that's what it's called for now. And essentially, it's super simple. Like you got to scale back. I think when you think about 6 weeks, it's not a long time. It's a long time in some regards, but not a long time for building products. So you got to scale back and say, what's the smallest thing that you could possibly find value in and use. So what I want to get kind of finished by the end of February is essentially a way to manage relationships that aren't on like a daily basis. So maybe it's like call your mom every 2 weeks, or talk to a particular mentor once a month, or an investor every 3 months. Things that they have like these recurring things and frequencies, but you need a bit of help to kind of remind you and to kind of manage those relationships. So that's kind of the starting point, and I think if I start there, then you can build a whole bunch of features after that. But kind of scope it down, and hopefully build something that I find valuable, I can use every day, or every other day, and maybe other people can use it too. So.
Awesome, and we'll have some time for people to ask questions about each other's projects. Do you want to talk a little bit about progress or things that happened this week with your project,
sure.
and something next week?
Sure. So this week I basically got it sounds really lame, but I got a prototype in Excel spreadsheet of kind of what you want to do, right? You basically set up the frequencies and stuff, and even got like a heat map going for things like for relationships that are overdue for Connect, and they look red, so and things that are like, your relationships are in good order, it's green, and then all the colors in between that spectrum. So that's actually pretty impressive considering it's just Excel, but it's like a good building block to kind of move to the next layer. So I think functionally that's all there, and so I'm happy about that. And the next week, I don't know where the next step is, whether it's like just start sketching up and that's probably it actually. It's probably just sketching up workflow. So like what are the 5 screens or whatever of the app, and that's it, and just like marker and paper, and that's it. And then just keep thinking through that process of like what are like the 5 or 10 clicks that you wanna happen in like this first MVP.
Awesome, thanks. Let's see, Marshall, you're up next.
Oops, sorry. Just fix the mute. So I'll freely volunteer. I didn't get as much done this week as I was shooting for. Been a little bit hectic. We did have an interesting conversation because I'm doing this with Danny, and I guess to catch everybody back up, we're doing that like sock subscription, never wear the same pair of socks, donate your used ones. And so we had an interesting conversation along the lines of maybe packaging this initially as not like an ongoing subscription, but like almost a sock drawer reset where like we'll just ship you like 20 pairs of socks, you and like a bag to ship back to us, all those like odds and ends socks, like the mismatched ones, the ones you know, you got as like a stocking stuffer that you're not really into, and then just to have your sock drawer set and consistent. You wash your clothes, any pair of socks matches with any pair of socks. So that could be an easier way to gain initial market penetration, just because the ongoing idea of, you know, a new pair of socks every day, well, fun is a little offsetting to some people. So we're experimenting with that, and then we also did some initial pricing, but that's about as far as we got.
And next week, what are you looking forward to?
So I want to do some more pricing, sort of finish that out. I also want to start working on our messaging and maybe pull together, you know, a prototype of our landing page.
Sounds good. All right, Morgan, you are up.
So this week I hit my 15-minute goal every single day, which was exciting. That's the accountability I was hoping for. And the project stuff that I was working on this week was just framework selection. So I chose which tools I'm going to use to build it. I went through probably 5 different iterations of different things that I was trying to put together and settled on the one that I got farthest in the shortest amount of time. So since we don't have a whole lot of time, I want to pick something I can actually develop well. And next week, looking forward to actually starting to build things, getting hooked into APIs, maybe displaying some pictures, moving forward there. So it's going to be good. I'm excited.
Excellent.
Very cool.
All right, so next up, I wanted to talk about assignments. So, you know, we had these two assignments, set the stakes and build consistency, and then we had the interview with Amanda. So just kind of wanted to open the floor and see, like, you know, how those assignments felt. Or did the videos feel like the right length? You know, is there anything, you know, like how is this landing so far?
I got through everything pretty quickly, and you know, it provided a good jumping off point. It was a good reminder to get back in and focus on what we're doing.
Cool.
Cool.
Morgan, it sounds like the 15-minute has been working out for you, the setting the time.
Yeah, absolutely. The setting the stakes helped a bit too, just giving an idea of why I'm doing what I'm doing. Mm-hmm. And then, yeah, accountability, as I said, was the big deal for wanting to get this project moving. And so setting up 15 minutes every day made me be accountable. If I didn't do it, well, then when am I going to do it? So it was good to have that as an idea. And I know the small chunks of time really make a difference for me, because setting aside 4 hours in a day is really hard, but setting aside 15 minutes is very easy. So once you get started, it's easy to keep going. It seems like a good idea.
Cool.
Yeah, that's the momentum I noticed too, that like more than once my 15 minutes turned into like an hour or 90 minutes. And that was a nice little pleasant thing. Like I before one or two people jumped in that I could really do much in 15 minutes. But it's been surprisingly efficient where, like, if you have your desktop organized and you have your virtual desktop, you've just got like, all right, this is my learning space. So when you jump back on the next day, you're like, oh yeah, this is where I was, and you boot up a lot quicker than I thought. So yeah, it's been a nice little chunk.
What's good? What's something you mentioned too, Al, about the virtual spaces? Something that's coming up in one of the next assignments or next week's assignments, which is called set up your lab. So, you know, you're going in the right direction there. I mean, cool. Any thoughts about the interview? I mean, at this point, like, so with the assignments, it seems like the time is reasonable and it's reasonably actionable. So we'll kind of keep it at that, you know, 5 to 7 minute assignment time range. And then the interviews have already been recorded, but I'm curious to know, you know, like how that first one went. You know, like when we'll have more, each one with a transcript. Are the transcripts useful? Is the audio useful? Who watched the video versus the audio? I'm just curious.
I got a lot out of it, and I'm curious to hear what other people thought too, because I am a designer, so I thought maybe a lot of it was, you know, I could relate. So I'm curious to see how universal the lessons were. I did start watching the video, and then I actually switched to audio because I had to go somewhere, and it was like a podcast. Like I forgot, like we were even in the class. I'm like, oh, I'll just listen to this while I, you know, go to the gym and do my thing, and I got to go at this hour. And ended up being really nice to like go be running errands and just kind of have it in the background. The aspect that I got why you guys are doing this, I was like 150 days, man, that's a huge streak. Like that's awesome. Like if your design, like, you know, skills were biceps, like you'd be just so yoked by now. So that I got a lot out of it, and so especially that aspect of it. So when the consistency thing hit next day about like, oh, I could do this, like a little spark came on, like hitting 150 days in a row and doing all this seems so impossible, but like 15 minutes a day, I'm like, you know, I could do 15 minutes a day. So that 1-2 combo was pretty nice. I liked it.
Yeah, and same way that the audio is helpful when you have to leave, you know, the computer or whatever, and just take it with you. I did it kind of right before this hangout, so I read the transcript, and that was nice because if you wanted to kind of power through it in 20 minutes or whatever, so I'll probably watch the video for the next one if I have time, but yeah, it's good to have those options, I think, and I took a lot out of it too. It's inspiring.
Yeah, I was a
All
huge
right,
fan of the
so
transcript.
sorry,
So
what's that?
I like those. Keep those up.
Cool. All right, so let's talk a little bit. I'm going to switch back to the screen share. Get ready for the crazy mirror effect. Okay. I think everyone can see this. Say something if you can't see it. So we're moving into week 2, flight planning, and what is going to go down. So next week's assignment's Sunday morning, which is tomorrow. We're going to select the target, and that's really about that sort of milestone, like what is going to ship at the end of at now 5 weeks. 5 weeks from now, what's going to be shipping. And so sort of like this week was like getting a handle on like where you're at maybe and seeing like how much progress can you realistically make in a week, and then kind of figuring out what you want to be. And if you haven't given it a name, I think naming is also great. So like figuring out what you're going to call your project or what you're going to call your milestone. Names are interesting things, so we're going to talk a little bit about that. Then we're going to have an interview with someone that is very prolific, a friend of Amanda's, Brian. Do you want to talk about Brian?
Yeah, he's kind of part artist, engineer, designer, kind of jack of all trades, but incredibly prolific. One of his most recent projects that got a lot of press was kind of mapping income inequality on the 2 line in New York City. So kind of as you travel up the 2 line and pass through different neighborhoods like Wall Street, Upper East Side, you get a different sound. So making music using data and code, which is very, very interesting.
Yeah. He's done a bunch of different projects, and he's done one around like buildings of New York where like you could like recreate the like skyline, and so he's sort of part designer and part developer to make this little tool. So Yeah, he's got some interesting things. And then Wednesday we'll do the lab piece, which is about like figuring out what tools you want to use, or like when you work on your project, like is there a space, either virtual or physical, that you have sort of like ready for you, and just like getting a little bit organized. I think that's all kind of comes together. So we'll spend some time and do that. Let's see. Yeah, and just a reminder of things to keep in mind as we work towards our work. Being constructive with feedback that you're sharing with the group or with us. Again, really appreciate you guys being patient with the dial-in. We're going to get better at this. I don't know why I'm going to figure out why the enterprise one wasn't working. Being resourceful, figuring it out as you go along, giving things a try. So, these exercises, these next ones should be pretty straightforward. So hopefully they won't be too weird. Staying focused on your work, pushing yourself, and being patient. That's sort of like these two opposites that I think, you gotta want to make things happen, but you also gotta realize that if it doesn't happen today or in the next 2 minutes or the next week, it's okay. Don't quit. All right, and share things that you're learning, which we're doing. So I've been really happy about that. All right, so that is kind of the end of the formal program. I'll flip back over here. And yeah, I don't know if folks had other questions or anything else they wanted to bring up or talk about before we wrap.
I figured I'd jump back in with my my quick thought about
Thoughts?
yeah, the socks, which was that for the one or two that joined afterwards. Basically, I already used socks kind of like that, the Bombas, and they made a big splash on Kickstarter, and they got in Shark Tank and everything. And I was treating the project, speaking of our values, as like a friend, where if a friend's going to do this, I'm going to go, all right, if you're really going to do this, how can you differentiate this? How can I make sure my friend succeeds? And I realized that my Bombas, I'd completely forgotten the angle of why they got started, the Tom's, Warby Parker kind of thing. And, there's so many little things they could do. You can call it content marketing or whatever you want to call it. It doesn't matter. To make people feel like they're doing good, like a little link or like a little card with the shipment saying, here's where your socks are going, or and here's the name of the shelter, and here's just make me feel good, like I'm paying to feel good. If I was paying for just socks, I wouldn't buy them, right? So the same way you go to Whole Foods, a celery is a celery, but you go to Whole Foods and you're paying to feel whatever. So that's just something I thought. I'm sure you guys thought of that too, but I just thought I'd throw it in there.
Yeah, no, definitely, and I appreciate the feedback on that. That's kind of part of what we were doing. Like when I actually had the idea, like I had done a little laundry and only 3 pairs of socks matched. And then later that same day, I passed a homeless man on the streets of San Francisco who was trying to use a plastic bag as a sock, and it was like, well. Hopefully we can, kill 2 birds with 1 stone. I'm not sure people.
A really great story. I think it's a really powerful powerful personal story that maybe it's not like the first thing you lead with, but like that needs to be somewhere on the site. I think.
Okay.
I think that resonates with a lot of people.
And the other aspect of not doing something first but trying to do it best is that there's like a saying, something like you can be first on the trail, but then you're going to have all the arrows in your back. So I would suggest to not ignore Bombas, to go, for example, go look up their Shark Tank episode. That I found it extremely invaluable. To hear them sort of get torn apart from investors, like they're doing a pitch essentially. You're getting to listen in on their pitch. Obviously, don't let it discourage you. I mean, even my little thing, like I was emailing Jason, I was like, "Fuck, there's this other guy. He's a total unicorn, and he's already got this course." And then I had to sit and think about it. I literally had to meditate. I'm like, "No, no, no. I've got some different things." He glossed over the prototyping part, that kind of thing. So, look into it without getting discouraged, I would say.
Okay, definitely. I'll put that on my homework list for this week.
And grade it about a 6.5.
Gosh, I wanted to talk to you about the network thing too, because I remember a company called eTax that did this at one point, and it was like a Gmail plugin. I don't know if you ever saw that. They got bought by, I think, either LinkedIn or Salesforce. Salesforce, yeah. I think it was a small acquisition. But they did it through email, and it was like, oh, people you haven't emailed in a while, or you could set like frequencies, So, and then my friend, the co-founder of the last company I did, also did his own little spreadsheet version of this, where he set up like lunches and stuff, and he had like a list of people, and he was like, how often do I want to see them? Like, it was like, weekly, monthly, quarterly, and like after that, it's like I actually don't want to see you.
Never.
I don't want to see someone. Kind of don't really want to see them at all. But like he had this whole like lunch thing for a while. We were doing like lunch and dinner, and it got a little awkward because he'd be like, oh, I'm booked for lunch until like this date, because he started getting really serious about it, and then people started making fun of him. He's like, oh, can't get on your calendar. You're so busy. So many meals. Oh, geez, I gotta slot you in.
Yeah, I must be on like the yearly frequency setting or something, right? Like
I've seen you already. Like we're good for a while.
Make room for somebody else, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's true. I could see it getting a little bit intense if you followed it to the T. But that's good news. What was that company called that got picked up?
ETACT. So like eTax, TACTS. So you might be able to find screenshots or something. I don't think it's running anymore.
Right.
But yeah, and then also there's like questions on Quora that are like, why hasn't anyone made a personal CRM? And there's a couple versions of this question. I don't think any of the answers are very satisfying, but might be interesting to see like how people think of this.
Yeah, definitely. There's been a couple that have popped up on Product Hunt as well. And again, like I would gladly use it if there was one that was, I think, good enough. There was one called Bond that kind of was going on that path. And but I installed it, and it was just a nightmare. I was like, this is either too complicated or just like too slow or too many clicks kind of thing. So anyway, but yeah, it's good advice.
Yeah, one place too, Josh, I might look for kind of a bit of inspiration, because part of this other thing we're doing is we like run CRMs for real estate agents, and for real estate agents that's extremely relationship driven, and there's a CRM out there right now that has like an interesting take on it called Contactually, and so they took like sort of an attempt at what you're doing, where you can like bucket people and like that'll schedule reminders and things like that. So it might be a useful resource while you're trying to think through what you're doing.
Yeah, right on. I think I've taken a look at that, but I'll dig deeper into it. I appreciate it.
One thing I wanted to ask is, I mean, the descriptions you gave sounded very consumer. So when you say CRM, it feels like that's, and I don't want to add too much scope creep to you, but I just wanted to clarify, if it's consumer, there's a whole class of things that aren't really CRMs that you might want to look at, or I would ask if that's what you want to emulate. So for example, Facebook Memories, it's not a CRM like, hey, you haven't talked to your mom in 19 hours or whatever. It's just, kind of fun and like, telling you randomly, like, what happened. There's Twitter-based stuff. I think it's Time Hop is another one. It'll kind of see who you've talked to the most and, who you haven't talked to in a while or that kind of thing. So because when I hear you talking about the competitors, the word you brought up twice was complicated. So just as a design on the far opposite end of the spectrum is like fire and forget it. You just install it, and then it's just got a grab bag of shit. Like, hey, you talk to this guy all the time and you haven't talked in 2 weeks. What's up? And you could be like, well, he's on vacation. That's cool. Or like, no, yeah, you're right. So on the spectrum, I'm curious if it's on the more CRM, managing relationships as if they are business contacts, kind of networky kind of thing, or if it's more on the like, if the overall goal is just to make people stay in touch with the people they care about and kind of fun, then fire and forget is there's a whole other class of things that don't have the word CRM attached.
Yeah, right. I think I'd avoid CRM just because it kind of brings that connotation of more the businessy side of things.
Mm-hmm.
Again, like I think I do enough business enterprise software stuff on my day job that I want to get as far away from that as possible for this one. But I could see, like, again, like one of those things that I have a personally hard time kind of remembering to do is keeping in touch with like a mentor or even like a potential investor or something every month or every 3 months. Like it's that stuff that's personal still because I consider them friends.
It's the layer between your close friends and everybody else, right? It's like your people you really like, you don't need help remembering. But then there's this like other layer where it's like they're kind of busy, you don't talk to them all the time, but like, or maybe they're in another city, so you don't just run into them. But then when you do see them, it's great, and it's like, how do you kind of like find that?
Yeah, and prepare for a world of hurt in dealing with email if you want to do a plugin like eTax. Like, I mean, it's something that's email is very foundational. It's like a cockroach. It's still there. Like even for like retail coupons, like it's just something that won't die and is growing. But the actual dealing with the APIs and all that is just such a monster.
Right.
So yeah.
Cool. Yeah, thanks for that. That's lots of good stuff to look into it. So, yeah, we'll see where it goes. I mean, like I said, if somebody could make it, I'd gladly use it. It's something that I find useful.
Nice.
Yeah, it should be fun.
Cool, man.
Cool. Well, guys, this has been excellent. Unless anyone has anything else they want to talk about, I want to make sure you guys all can get on with your day and get onto your projects.
There's only one thing I wanted to mention, and maybe you guys have already chatted about this, but and it's actually the same word that you guys have brought up multiple times is momentum. It's just a free app that you can download for your Mac. I don't know if they have other ones, but honestly, it's just keeping the chain, and it runs in your system. There's system bar or whatever in the top right, and every day you can kind of set your habit. It's like habit building app, and so if you put in network or ship your side projects or whatever, every day you just kind of go, and once you've done your 15 minutes, you just click it, pops up a green square, and away you go. And you can actually set reminders and stuff if you haven't put in your 15 minutes that day.
Yeah, you should send that out to the list, actually.
Sure.
Great, that's awesome.
Okay.
Cool. All right, guys. Well, so great to see all of you. Hey, Mario. We were just wrapping up.
What'd I miss?
But we can, if you want to stay on, we can chat for a little bit. But we're gonna close out the rest of the call, and maybe Mario, you and I, we can just catch up super quickly. Thanks everyone for coming on.
No problem.
Thanks, guys.
All right. So we'll see you.
Bye.
Bye.
Ciao.